Welcome everyone, this is Honest Restart, and guess what? We basically have confirmation that we are getting an E3 Nintendo Direct this year. So what happened was, E3 has officially announced that they're going to have an official digital event, and multiple big companies are backing them, like Microsoft and Ubisoft and Warner Brothers and Nintendo. We even got a tweet from Doug Bowser, the president of Nintendo of America, and he said, "It's going to be great to get the video game industry back together with our fans this June. We'll make the virtual format fun and engaging. Looking forward to seeing you all in June." So there you have it, guys. Nintendo will be having a presence at this E3, pretty much how they've always done since the mid-90s, save for 2020 because of the pandemic. In other words, get hyped. We are getting a Nintendo Direct, and I think it's going to be a pretty darn good one. I do want to caution you guys, take everything we talk about in this video with a grain of salt. We don't know what's actually going to be happening. But for this video, what I'm going to be doing is putting out my early but official Nintendo Direct E3 2021 predictions. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you may have already noticed I've been talking about this to some extent already. But for this video, what I'm going to be doing is focusing on the actual structure of this presentation, how Nintendo will present it to us, what it will entail in terms of the actual games and announcements and what will be announced when and where. But I'm also going to be talking about the details surrounding this Direct. For example, there's this rumored Switch revision that's coming out for the holiday. If that's actually happening, how that shaped this Nintendo Direct, what will Nintendo do? So we're going to be talking about that as well. And of course, we're also going to mention the Treehouse as well, because that's going to be a big part of Nintendo's digital plans for E3 this year. At least I think so. But anyway, that's what we're focusing on today. Now, before we jump into things, let me very quickly talk about my social media. You may see a few different things here on screen. You can check that all out. It's linked in the description below. And of course, if you like what you're seeing here, you can subscribe. So before we get into how I think this Direct is going to go down, I first think we need to focus on this Switch revision situation. I've been telling you guys that I think it's going to be called Switch Plus. Could be wrong, of course, but we'll see what happens. Regardless of what it's called, though, if it's real, Nintendo's going to talk about it at some point. Bloomberg, a reputable source, has been repeatedly putting out reports that it's happening and suggesting that it's coming for this holiday. But even more recently, we got some information directly from Nintendo that suggests that this is kind of happening. So there was the 12.0 firmware update for the Switch. And, of course, some people datamined this update and they found something quite peculiar. Basically, there's some information here for an update for the Switch dock. But the Switch dock doesn't really have components that would need updating, right? At least in terms of like software. What it's suggesting, at least what people think it's suggesting, is that Nintendo will eventually have a dock for the Switch family that will have some sort of update potential there. There's even an acronym there that could be connecting to the rumored code name for this Switch revision, AULA. In other words, this could be a little bit more smoke of the fire for a Switch revision coming out later this year. And if that's the case, I think that greatly impacts what sort of Direct we should be anticipating here. Because if this is a Switch revision, this might not just be a simple Switch revision. This could be a 4K capable system, as the reports are suggesting, and what that may mean is it's going to function more as a mid-gen refresh for Nintendo, kind of like the new Nintendo 3DS for the 3DS. They had a pretty nice lineup to support that system. It extended the lifespan for the 3DS a little bit more, for a few more years. So with that in mind, Nintendo's going to be coming out with software that will be supporting the Switch revision, and if they're going to have that software to support the Switch revision, they're going to need to announce it somewhere, and the best venue for that would be in an E3 style Direct. So yeah, I think this is all pointing towards a very big presentation. But on top of all of that, if we are actually getting this 4K capable Switch for the holiday, in my mind, that pretty much confirms that Breath of the Wild 2 will be the big holiday game. Which also I think makes sense because this is Zelda's 35th anniversary. Normally they celebrate Zelda's anniversary towards the end of the year, and the best way to do that would be with the biggest and newest Zelda game. We also know from Eiji Aonuma that we are getting details about Breath of the Wild 2 at a later date, which to me has always been pointing towards an E3 style presentation similar to what we got back at E3 2016 for Breath of the Wild 1. To put it simply, even if you have no care for a 4K Switch, what it means is that Nintendo's going to be putting out games to support this system, and it might also suggest that Breath of the Wild 2 is around the corner, which also might mean that it could have a big focus during this E3 Nintendo Direct. On the note of focus though, I don't think we'll actually see this Switch Plus showcased during the E3 Direct. It's possible it could happen. We have seen Nintendo showcase hardware in Directs in the past, but most of the time they don't. And it's also possible that maybe they have an overview trailer coming out before the Direct. That way we know about the hardware and we can keep it in mind as we see footage of Breath of the Wild 2 and other games in 4K during the E3 livestream. But I'll say, it's kind of hard to get 4K high quality live streams on such a large scale. So I would say the more likely expectation, I think, is for it to maybe be after this E3 Direct. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, somewhere around there. I think that'll happen. They'll make the announcement for this Switch Plus, they'll showcase its features, and they'll give it a release date for what I'm assuming is going to be around this holiday. And I think that makes the most sense because by that point, we'll know all about the games that are coming out for the second half of 2021 that this system will take advantage of and push, and we won't spend so much time being excited about these new games, this new footage they're showing us, and we can focus more on the quality and features of this system. So with that in mind, let's now talk about what are we getting for this Direct. So when Nintendo finally announces this Direct, I think they're going to put out that tweet, and I think it's going to say something along the lines of, tune in on such and such date, somewhere between June 12th and the 15th at like noon, to watch a 45 to 50 minute presentation focusing on 2021 games, including announcements for the Legend of Zelda series. Basically, that's what I'm sort of expecting for the announcement of this presentation. Really how I'm sort of structuring my predictions here is to be very similar to how Nintendo handled E3 2018. So for E3 2018, the big holiday game was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So what did they do? Well, they basically said that for 2018, we're gonna have a Nintendo Direct focusing on announcements for 2018, including Smash Bros. And that actual presentation was a 43-minute presentation when you round up, and 25 minutes of it was for Smash Bros. The other 18, well, it was for everything else. That's what I'm sort of thinking is going to be going down for this Direct. I think a big chunk of it is going to be for the Legend of Zelda anniversary sort of situation, and then everything else will be in the first half. But because I think Nintendo's going to actually have a stronger year this year than 2018, especially with this Switch revision coming, I'm expecting this first half to be a bit more significant than the first half in 2018, but they're still going to have a very strong second half with all those Legend of Zelda announcements to make. So then let's now jump into how Nintendo may open up the show. Like most Direct presentations, I think there's a really good chance they're going to open it up with a Smash character. But that kind of depends on what this Smash character is. If this Smash character is a big third-party character, say for like Crash Bandicoot or Rayman, absolutely they will open up the show with that, and that will be super hyped, super exciting. But if this character is, say, for example, a Zelda character, then no, it will not be opening up the show. They will save that for when they start talking about Zelda later into the presentation. So when we get into that E3 Direct and we start the show and there is no Smash character to open it up, I think that's a big sign that we're getting a Zelda character, and it will be announced later on when they focus on Zelda. But what if they don't have a Smash reveal, or what's coming after the Smash reveal? I think they're gonna try and open up the show with a big new game, or a game that hasn't been shown off yet, that will really wow fans and be something of a big showcase for the Nintendo Switch. Something graphically demanding, something that is definitely an eye-popper, something like maybe Bayonetta 3, or maybe a new Monolith game, perhaps Xenoblade 3, or a new IP. Something like this will be a great way to open up the show because it's going to look amazing, and people are going to be like, whoa, what's that? But I also think it would be great to get that out there, because if this Switch revision is coming out for the holidays, even if we have Breath of the Wild 2 coming out in November, they're probably going to want to have another game that's a good sort of showcase for the capabilities of the system to come out soon after, perhaps December. So a Bayonetta 3 or a new Microsoft game would make a lot of sense. For historical precedents, we did see Xenoblade Chronicles 2 come out in December of 2017. But then going beyond that, I think Nintendo's gonna balance things out and talk about some third-party stuff. So I think they're gonna finally kind of showcase Shin Megami Tensei 5. We've been waiting for that for a while. It wasn't really talked about during the February Nintendo Direct. It's supposed to come out this year. So that E3 Direct that we're gonna be getting, I think, this would be the time to talk about it. And hopefully they reconfirm the 2021 release date with an actual specific date and it comes out sometime the second half of the year. After that, I think we'll get an update on this Mario Golf game that we're getting in June. It's coming out in June, so they're gonna wanna remind people, hey, this is right around the corner, check it out. And they might announce a few more details, maybe some early DLC or bonus options, something like that. For sure, I think it'll pop up at some point during this presentation. At some point in this presentation, I am expecting an announcement of a new Donkey Kong game. It's been rumored for a while from credible sources, and I do think the timing makes sense. So I feel like this Donkey Kong game, if it's real and it's coming out this year, this is the time to show it, and fairly early on to the presentation, I think would be a good time to kind of reveal to the world this awesome new Donkey Kong game. After that, I'm expecting some updates for Monster Hunter Rise, show us a little bit more DLC updates that are coming, also give us an update on Monster Hunter Stories, which is also coming out this summertime as well. So that'd be a good time to sort of update it and get fans who are excited about Rise to also maybe check out Stories. So the timing of that makes a lot of sense, and I think it would be a really good way to market both games. After that, I think we'll get another Nintendo published game announcement, and I'm thinking we're going to get news of a new Fire Emblem game, or rather, a remake of an old Fire Emblem game. Because of the number of things that I think could be coming out this year, I have to sort of like in my head for it to make sense decide what's not going to come out this year. So I'm thinking that this Fire Emblem remake will be announced, but it will be coming out a little bit later. It's at least something to sort of throw a bone towards the Fire Emblem fan base, let them know that something is right around the corner, but it won't be coming out quite this year. Could be wrong on that. There's a lot of games that could be coming out this year or could not be coming out this year. But either way, I think they'll at least show off this new Fire Emblem remake. Now at this point, you guys might be thinking, man, there's a lot of cool stuff that they could be showing off during this presentation. But where I may lose some of you is I think they're going to show off something else that I think could be pretty crazy and kind of makes a lot of sense to me. It might not come out this year, but I feel like it's something that's definitely in the works. Like, I absolutely believe this is in the works, I just don't know if it's going to be shown off yet and if it's going to come out this year. And what this is something that we're not sure of yet. It might be Mario Kart 9, it might be another big multiplayer game. But basically, the team behind Mario Kart 8 and ARMS hasn't come out with anything since ARMS. And they came out with ARMS back in 2017. Sure, there was some DLC, but we're already in 2021. If they're not ready to come out with a game this year, they're surely at least ready to show it off. And considering that Nintendo just recently overhauled their online setup for Monster Hunter Rise, they're probably going to want to get out another big multiplayer game to support this. We know that Splatoon 3 is coming out in 2022, but they probably want something else, especially if they have this new Switch revision. They want to get out a new big game to help push this that isn't just Breath of the Wild. There's already a lot of games supposedly coming out this year, so it's hard for me to think for sure this one would also come out this year, but I think it's at least a really good chance they could show it off. Going beyond that, I feel like it's about time for us to hear about another Ubisoft Nintendo partner game. So again, because we're going to be seeing this kind of mid-gen refresh for Nintendo, normally Ubisoft puts out their sort of exclusive partnership game early on to a system's life cycle, so we could be seeing an announcement for another one. Maybe it could be some sort of Star Fox adapted Starlink game, maybe it could be another one of those Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle games, or it could be something entirely new. But either way, I really feel like there's something coming. Look at the success that Monster Hunter Rise is getting. It's going to be one of the biggest, most successful games on Nintendo Switch. It's had one of the fastest launches so far. And that was because, well, one, the game is awesome, but also because Capcom took the time to build up a high quality game from the ground up. Ubisoft probably also wants to do something similar. So, you know, this might be the time to maybe make an announcement for it. It might not come out this year, but at least make an announcement for it, get fans excited for it. At some point in this presentation, I am expecting a little update on Pokemon. They might show off Legends Arceus again. I think that they might wait a little bit longer potentially, but for sure they're at least going to give us a quick little trailer for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Now, usually when we get like those big E3 presentations, Pokemon has their own separate presentation a week or two before E3, so they might do that again this year, and that's where they'll sort of give us more details on Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But they'll remind us of this game again during E3, and for sure there will be a Treehouse segment on Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. At some point in this direct, I am expecting a trailer for Age of Calamity DLC. Now, this is a Zelda related thing, so you could argue, hey, why not just show this off during the Zelda portion of the presentation? Well, the thing is, Age of Calamity is a spin-off thing, it's not being made directly by Nintendo, and it's just DLC of this game. So it wouldn't surprise if we see this separate from the Zelda anniversary sort of announcements. Either way though, it wouldn't shock me if it's like later into the first half of the presentation, not too long before they start talking about all the Zelda stuff. I think they're gonna show off the first wave of this DLC in an actual trailer with actual information about what it is, and they're gonna shadow drop it because shadow dropping things makes sense, and this first wave is supposed to come out in June, so the timing makes a lot of sense. After that, I am certain we will get some sort of third-party montage of other smaller games that are coming, and even some games that might not be that small, but might be like fairly epic ports, things of that nature. We've seen it every year. We'll get it again this time around as well. It's hard for me to sort of specify which games will be coming, but you can bank on it. We'll get some sort of third-party montage towards the end of the first half. And then to close out the first half of the presentation, Nintendo will have one more fairly exciting announcement, and that's for Metroid. Now, I don't think it's gonna be Prime Trilogy, and I don't think it's gonna be Prime 4. I think it's gonna be for a 2.5D Metroid game. That's what I think is happening. I think that's coming first, then perhaps early next year or sometime next year we get Prime Trilogy HD or Prime Trilogy 4K, and then eventually we get Prime 4. But similar to how Eiji Aonuma has been a part of the reviews for Age of Calamity and Skyward Sword HD, and he mentioned how development is going smoothly for Breath of the Wild 2 and that we'll get details later on, I think the same will happen with Kensuke Tanabe. I think Kensuke Tanabe, the prime producer, will be in the direct, and he'll say, hey look guys, we're working diligently on Prime 4 with Retro Studios, things are going along smoothly, we're not quite ready to show it off yet, but we do have something very nice for you guys. And then we get that Metroid 2.5D trailer, which I think could have some nods towards the Prime series, but will ultimately be a 2.5D Metroid game, which I think could be pretty darn hype and will be coming out this year. And on the note of Metroid, I mentioned that I think the Switch Plus overview trailer wouldn't have any new game announcements necessarily, but if there is one that I could kind of see being announced during this overview trailer and not during a direct, it would be Metroid Prime Trilogy. So say in August, they pump out this overview trailer, and they show off some pretty sick looking games running on the system. Maybe they don't even make an official announcement, they just show Metroid Prime on the system, and kind of like how they showed off games with the initial Switch overview trailer, like for example Skyrim and NBA 2K, and people just thought that those were just mock-ups. They'll show off some Metroid gameplay, I think, during that to showcase the increased visuals of this Switch system. Potentially show off Prime Trilogy during Direct, but I'm thinking they're going to save some things for later on is my point here. And when it comes to Prime 4, it wouldn't even shock me if we get a teaser later this year, but I'm thinking maybe the Game Awards, because by that point there probably will be no more Smash DLC characters to announce, so you're going to need something else hyped to show off at the Game Awards that's very hardcore centric, and a Metroid Prime 4 teaser, yeah, that would definitely be it. But now it's time to move on to The Legend of Zelda. They'll transition to Legend of Zelda. Eiji Aonuma, the series director, will go on stage or in video, and he'll talk a little bit about Zelda's 35th anniversary and the history of Zelda. We'll then get a Smash reveal if it ends up being a Zelda character like Impa. If that's not the case, then it's just not going to be there, and that's just it. But then after that, I think we'll get another update on Skyward Sword HD. They'll give us a few more little details on it and let us know that we could see more footage of this during the Treehouse of how it plays, and that it'll be coming out next month in July. After that, they may show off a few little merchandising things, and they'll say that Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask will be coming out on the eShop later this year, and they'll be kind of like the Mario 64 port on 3D All-Stars. They'll be upscaled, they'll look a little better, they'll fix up the HUD elements, and it'll be a nice little improvement to play on the eShop. I know a lot of people were expecting a whole bunch of other Zelda games. That may be the case, I could be wrong here, but because of how long Zelda games tend to be, it's just not as digestible as Mario, and because Nintendo may actually have a lot of new games to come out with this year as opposed to a whole bunch of old games like last year because it was a pandemic, I think that they're going to save a lot of other Zelda games for later on. I know there are some fairly credible rumors suggesting that Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD could come out this year. I'm not going to complain about that if it happens, but because I think Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be the big show, and I think this Switch version is coming out this year and they need that to push it, I think they'll probably save those games for later on. Nintendo wants to come out with Zelda games pretty much every single year. No, not pretty much every single year, so they're going to want to save some of those games for a little bit later on. But I think with some nice eShop releases like I mentioned, Skyward Sword HD, and Breath of the Wild 2, that's definitely more than enough to celebrate the anniversary. And on the note of Breath of the Wild 2, we'll finally get an extended trailer for this game. We're going to see story elements, we're going to see gameplay elements, it's going to be hype, it's going to be at least 3, maybe 4 minutes long, kind of like that big trailer we got at the beginning of 2017 when they showed off the whole Breath of the Wild story and such. Something like that, and then at the end of the trailer, they will give us a release date. They'll say holiday 2021, or if it's not coming out this year, then they'll say early 2022 or something like that. And that will be how they'll close off the show, but they'll say stay tuned because we have a whole bunch of awesome Treehouse footage to show for you guys. So similar to how back at E3 2016 when they showed off Breath of the Wild and there was a whole bunch of Treehouse footage all day about the game, we're going to get a lot of Treehouse footage for Breath of the Wild too. It's not going to have as much of a focus then because Nintendo has other games to show off, but there will be definitely a big chunk of Treehouse dedicated to Breath of the Wild 2. That's going to be a very hype, exciting thing, and we're going to actually get to see how this game plays. There'll be some part of the map, maybe so much of the Great Plateau, where we can sort of focus and play on that, and it's just going to be amazing and glorious. There's just so much they could do with that. I'll probably save a whole other video just discussing how they could sort of handle an actual E3 2021 demo for Breath of the Wild 2. But going beyond that, they will surely showcase Metroid Prime 2.5D, Shin Megami Tensei 5, maybe this new Ubisoft game, Donkey Kong, Mario Golf because it's about to come out, Skyward Sword HD as well, and whatever other lead game they had to start off the show, be it a Xenoblade 3 or whatever Microsoft has to offer, or Bayonetta 3. And if by some massive stroke of luck, this big new multiplayer game that I'm speculating on that can maybe Mario Kart 9 or something else comes out this year, I think they'll also showcase that during the Treehouse. If it's not coming out this year, I don't think they'll showcase that during the Treehouse. They'll save that gameplay for a little bit later on. I also think they'll have some Treehouse footage for Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl as well. I don't think they'll show off Legends Arceus in the Treehouse. I think they'll save that for a later time. I think they want to focus on this first Pokemon game that's coming out this year, and then eventually they'll start talking about Legends Arceus. And then eventually they'll show us some actual gameplay of Legends Arceus, but we're a little bit of a ways off from that. And that's how I think Nintendo is going to be handling their E3 2021. There'll be a big digital presentation. They will have Treehouse footage all throughout the day after that event and probably on the second day after their event as well. And then a month or two down the road, we will get a Switch Plus overview trailer where they'll showcase the capabilities of the system alongside Breath of the Wild 2, maybe a couple other games that they don't even necessarily announce, but they're just kind of there and people are sort of scratching their heads, like maybe a Prime Trilogy. But then also they probably would show off some older games that look and run better on the system as well. But if this all happens, I think most people will be very excited about it. It might be a little bit too much, but I think if Nintendo is pushing new hardware, they're going to need to come out with some pretty good content. But of course, these are just my ideas. I'm for sure curious what you guys also think, so let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.